Holy smokes. Holy smokes. We are live. We are live. College football's peek around the corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends if you want to support this Rebel Outpost, college football's Rebel Outpost, with a donation. Hit the $sign where you make a comment, and I'll get to you super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome, everybody. Even Jim Phillips. Welcome, everybody. Even the Florida State Seminoles. Even the Clemson Tigers. Even the Miami Hurricanes. And even the year of Bubba. Even UNC Chapel Hill. Everybody is welcome into the studio that sits on the corner, the very corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to become a legend with the comments and with the phone calls later in the show. Massive news, breaking news, massive victory for the Miami Hurricanes, the North Carolina Tar Heels, the Florida State Seminoles, and the Clemson Tigers. Congratulations to Florida State and Clemson, who took it to the courts. Congratulations for getting this victory. And I know some people, they want to keep fighting, but this In my opinion, now you can disagree. We are going to go through an article of Pete Thamels. We're going to go through an article of Ross Dellinger. We're going to go through your comments. And the phone lines are going to stay open as long as they need to stay open. We could be here for a very long time. Massive news. But this is the deal you had to make. Now, we at Peek Around the Corner, we thought, we said we believed that ESPN was going to pick up the option. There was going to be a kumbaya moment. And when Ross Dellinger reported that it looked like Florida State Clemson would be coming out of the courts, not imminent, but it was going to happen, we did the poke and the prod, and we believed it. We said we think they're going to leave. It looks like it's going to happen. Tomorrow, there is a Board of Trustees meeting at Clemson and at Florida State, and I think they're going to give everybody the okay, acquiesce, get it done. Get out of the courts. Get out of the courts, and I know people want to fight it in the... I get it. But this deal, if I'm... Unless there's something we don't know, and we don't know everything, this deal lines up perfectly with the goals that Florida State and Clemson had, and this is what North Carolina wanted. North Carolina has been rattling the cages, everybody in the ACC, to get this done for so many reasons. Now, what happens? Now, we're going to talk. There's so much to talk about. I want to talk a little bit about it before we get to the articles. Not too much, because the articles really, they tell the story of, look, this is, my goodness, in 2030 and 31, the exit fee to get out of the conference, there's going to be cost certainty. Clemson and Florida State are going to know exactly what it's going to cost to get out of the conference. And I believe, I'm not sure, but I believe that the ACC is going to have to accept that check in this deal. This is exactly what Florida State and Clemson wanted. And it is what North Carolina wanted. And Miami is sitting over there in the catbird seat. We'll talk about that more later. Now, but there are other institutions. There's a whole lot of other institutions. That are affected by all of this. Look, between you and me, we all know in the PATC family, after we go through these reports, I mean, the ACC is not going to exist in 2031 like they do now. That's not going to happen. I mean, you're looking for, let's start with Stanford and California. I don't even, now they've got 5 years left in a coastal conference in which undoubtedly, the odds of the biggest brands leaving the conference have shot upward for 2030-31. Now, of course, we don't know the economy of everything 5 years from now, but undoubtedly, the odds of the ACC losing their top brands have shot skyward 5 years from, not 11 years from now, 5 years from now. And if you think about Stanford in California, I mean, you're looking at, you might have to look back at the Pac-12. Or you might look at the Big Ten. I don't know. Especially, well, we'll get into that. Now, what about Boston College? What about Syracuse? I mean, let me show you. We're going to be here a long time. So we're going to get to your comments. We're going to get to everything, okay? We are going to be here a long time. Let me show you. I love this Brian Murphy tweet. Love it. Now, Brian Murphy says, in-demand schools earn more, plus reduced financial penalty for leaving after 2030. Lesser earners get less money each year, but stability for the next half a decade, and no one has to pay more legal bills. Nathan Brown, a friend of the program, the architect of the college football mafia, says 5 more years. Better start your disaster planning now. Someone somewhere must have said to the bottom 8 brands at the ACC. And then he says, it won't matter. College football may completely be different in 5 more years. Brian Murphy, I love this. As I tweeted earlier, it does seem to put an expiration date on the league. No question. What it looks like now there's an expiration date on the league in some ways. But who knows what college football or college athletics may look like by then. Is there an academic league for some in the ACC? Is there a hoops league with the Big East? Is there a Super League? So there is a lot of different scenarios at play. Different scenarios at play. But to get to the big part of the story, a massive victory for Florida State and Clemson, in my opinion. Now, you can disagree. You can disagree on this channel with no problems. But I think this is a massive victory. Because I happen to believe, and I am no expert, I am not a lawyer, I'm not a judge, and when I pretend to be one, I do a lousy job. But this court case was going to go on and on and on. There was going to be appeal processes. Both sides were holding serve. And now Florida State and Clemson has got a date and a cost certainty. And it sounds like the ACC has to accept the check. Plus, we haven't even gone into the other part. Plus, they're going to get more money here in the next 5 years. We're going to go into that reporting right now. First of all, I got to thank everybody for coming on in. Larry Andrick gifted a membership. Holy smokes. Christopher Mercado, one of the great artists of PATC, was gifted a membership. Christopher Mercado, when you get a chance, please say thank you to Larry. Larry, Mr. Mountaineer, thank you for your generosity so very much. Both of you are knighted, Cloak and Dagger. Thank you for becoming members once again. I do appreciate it. We've got John Till. Stanford to the Big Ten could bring the Big 12. Could the Big 12 bring in California? I don't think so. I don't think California is going to be joining the Big 12. I think that when the time comes, I think California is going to try to get in the Big 10, probably be unsuccessful. Maybe they look at trying to maintain some sort of presence in a new ACC. It's going to be difficult. That is going to be extremely difficult. Without the top brands, without the value there, for California to make that coastal trip. That is going to be, and I don't think California is going to join the Big 12. I don't think California, Berkeley is going to have interested in joining the Big 12. I'm not taking a shot at California, Berkeley. I'm not taking a shot at the Big 12. I'm just being honest with you. I don't think that is going to work. So I think we're back to the Pac-12 scenario for California, possibly. Thank you, John Till. I do appreciate the generosity once again. Let me go through first, before we get to the articles, and they are unbelievably written once again by Pete Thamel and Ross Dellinger. Let's just go through a roll call real quick. Big Ears Bo is in the house. James Foster, Florida Man. Caleb Ramirez, Mr. Cornhusker, Skaven, yes. Cyclone, Matt Neeson. Preston from Greensboro. Hard Knocks offseason to UNC this year. Yes, that news broke. Big day for North Carolina. Patrick Baylor, Bears in the house. We haven't even hit on the ramifications of the Big 12. We haven't even hit upon that yet, but we're going to get to it. Struthers is in the house. Jimmy, Chad Bracey, Foodie Memphis, Steel Austin, KS Bear fan, Almighty fan, David B., Daniel Gorby. A win for Florida State. As much criticism as we have received for filing the lawsuit, we would have never got these concessions from the ACC or ESPN. True. Florida State did not concede until they got everything they could possibly have wanted. Heelan, Florida is in the house. Tumasta is here. Alani Ted is here. R. Webb, Jan Hoke, Stephen McNeely. Wow. Vox Quindaro. Bill G is in the house. A lot of people here. Marcus Williams, Mr. Michigan Wolverine is in the house. Now I've lost track. Where am I? I have lost all control. Larry Andrick, once again. Stephen Vitt, Ohio Bobcat is in the house. Terry Kane, a big day for Miami. Big day for Miami. And I'm going to read you a text message. Yeah, it was text. No, it was email. I'm going to read you an email, a quick little email later on in the show from BTM, Big Ten man. Remember, he predicted, not just a prediction, but he came out with a statement. This is the guy who fed me all the USC information. This is the guy who helped me break the PJ Fleck story. This is the guy who helped me break Notre Dame to Big Ten men's hockey story. Some people know who he is in the business. BTM said Miami to the Big Ten in 2029. I said that about a year ago. I let everybody know BTM said that. That's what he thought was going down the tracks. And now he said in an email, I'll read it to you later, but he says, looks like I might be about 18 months off, something like that. 18 months. I think he's thinking, that's all he said. I think he's thinking like right before, I don't know, July of 2030, whatever. But you get the point. So, I don't know. I don't want to get off track here. We've got big breaking news. We've got a lot of stuff going on. And this is a massive victory for the big brand schools in the ACC. It could be a big victory for the Big 12. It could be a, SEC, Big 10. And for the rest of the ACC schools, there is some options out there, and we're going to be talking about it for the next 3, 4, 5 years. And because, boy, there is a lot to talk about. I'm sorry for the long monologue. We're going to get to the roll call. Because there is this exit fee that's going to be heavily reduced, a cost certainty at a date known, these Tier 1 talks are going to start happening in 27 or 28. So, they're not going to happen now, although there's going to be there's already been some third-party talks, but there's going to be a lot of third-party talks between Big 12 and some ACC schools in the Big 12, like Louisville and Virginia Tech and things of that nature. But first-party talks, you're not going to have to wait to 2033 anymore, 2034. And no, there wasn't first-party talks between Florida State, Clemson, and the Big Ten and the SEC. There has not been any first-party talks. No deal was placed, all that stuff. I think everybody knows all that reporting was garbage. But the first-party talks are going to start in a couple of years. Anyways, cranky Tiger, big day for the Tigers. Big day. Again, we got to go through the articles for people to understand how big this is. Ryan Brooks, Tiger, LSU Tiger, the big Lubbock. Big 12 needs Louisville and Georgia Tech. Okay, let's get to the articles because a lot of people don't know what the heck I'm talking about. John Teal, leftover ACC teams could merge with the PAC. I don't know if there is enough value there to do a coastal conference a purely coastal conference without the big value schools in the East. I don't know if that would work. I guess that's an option, John. I guess people are going to watch that, but going to talk about it, but then, and we also got to talk about SMU. SMU, who made a deal that they would not have media money for 9 years. SMU, what just happened now to SMU? Thank you, John Teal, for the super chat. I do appreciate it. So much to get through. Unbelievable. Let's go through the articles so we can bring everything into picture. I'm going to go through these quickly. First, Andrea Adelson, David Hell, and Pete Thamel. Sources, Florida State, Clemson expected to reach a settlement with the ACC. Florida State and Clemson will vote Tuesday, tomorrow, and when the voting happens, we are going to go live. We are going to go live. And if there is a live Florida State streaming or Clemson, let me know. Send me a DM and we'll carry it live. We will carry it live here at Peek Around the Corner. Florida State and Clemson will vote Tuesday on an agreement that would ultimately result in the settlement of 4 ongoing lawsuits between the schools and the ACC and a new revenue distribution strategy that would solidify the conference's membership for the near future. And that is a part of this. Stability for the next 4 or 5 years, although there's going to be some first-party talks within the latter part of those 4 or 5 years. The ACC Board of Directors is scheduled to hold a call Tuesday, to go over the settlement terms. In addition, Florida State and Clemson have both called board meetings to present the terms at noon Tuesday. All 3 boards must agree to the settlement for it to move forward, but sources throughout the league expect the deal to be reached. According to sources, the settlement includes 2 key objectives. 1, establishing a new revenue distribution model based on viewership and a change in the financial penalties for exiting the league's grant of rights before its conclusion in June 2036. Victory 1, Victory 2 for Florida State and Clemson, and North Carolina and Miami. But it was Florida State and Clemson battling in the courts. Victory number 1, victory number 2. This new revenue distribution model or brand initiative is based on a 5-year rolling average of TV ratings. Now, this is going to cause a lot of hardship, because, look, we all know that Florida State and Clemson bring in the ratings, but having certain time slots can give you the better ratings. Like some of these schools, oh boy, if like a Louisville is 7-0 and still not getting the prime time spots because they were distributed to the bigger brands before the season started, that's going to hurt Louisville's viewership, hurt their money. That's just one example. That's going to cause a lot of problems. But anyways, look, the deal's about to get done, including how to properly average games on the unrated ACC network or subscription channels. The brand initiative will be funded through a split in the league's TV revenue, with 40%, now get this, 40% distributed evenly among the 14 long-standing members, and 60% going toward the brand initiative and distributed based on TV ratings. Top earners are expected to net an additional $15 million or more, according to sources. 15 or more. While some schools will see a net reduction in the annual payout of up to about $7 million. $7 million? That's a lot. That's almost a quarter of the conference payout reduction. That will have, when you're talking about rev share, when you're talking about, this is going to have a devastating effect on the bottom half of the ACC. And that is one of the many reasons why the ACC in 2030-31 ain't going to be the same. It just isn't. Because now your bottom half, you're starving your bottom half a little bit more. They're going to get a little bit weaker. Not all of them. Not all the schools. Not like a Duke maybe, but some of those schools are going to, and it's just, it's going to be a death spiral for the ACC, in my opinion. The brand fund, combined with separate Success Initiative Fund approved in 23 and enacted last year that rewards school for postseason appearances, would allow teams to hit the necessary benchmarks in each to close the revenue gap with the SEC, possibly adding in the neighborhood of $30 million or more annually should a team make a deep run. Okay, let me see here. Sources have suggested Clemson and Florida State would be among the biggest winners of this brand-based distribution, though North Carolina and Miami are others expected to come out with the higher payout. After all these articles were released, I poked and prod. I had 3 conversations. Yes, North Carolina and Miami are going to make a little bit more money. And I think Louisville will, and I think, on a base, like if you just have a typical season, anyway, I'll go down that rabbit hole later, but Georgia Tech was actually the ACC's highest rated program in 24, based in part of Week 0 game against Florida State and a 7 overtime thriller against Georgia. Basketball ratings will be included. If ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips is able to get this to the finish line on Tuesday, it will be a big win for him and for the conference during a time of unprecedented change in collegiate athletics, particularly for a league that many speculated would break apart when litigation began and with the ACC and Florida State and Clemson. Both schools would consider it a win as well, and they should. And they should. I mean, according to Florida State's attorneys, it could have meant paying as much as $700 million to get out of the conference. It's going to be much less than that in 2030, 2031. Okay, so this is the major part of the article. Although the settlement will not make substantive changes to the grant of rights, it is expected that there will be a declining financial penalties for schools that exit before 36, with the steepest decreases coming after 2030. It's almost like there is a new Gore, right? If you're going to have the steepest decrease after 2030, that's like an informal new Gore. It really is. That's like telling Clemson and Florida State and North Carolina, yeah, okay, there is a Gore that goes to 2036, but you're going to have cost certainty. It's going to dramatically drop after 2030. 2031, the doors open up. That is the reality of this situation. The specific financial figures for schools to get released from the grant of rights were not readily available. So we don't know, right? But the total cost to exit the league after the 29 and 30 season is expected to drop below $100 million. Only $100 million. The total cost to exit the league after the 29 and 30 season is expected to drop below $100 million. And if the world hasn't blown up, if the media market isn't extremely tight, if sports content, live sports content is still king, and it should be, there are the biggest brand schools in the ACC are going to be leaving. They're going to write the check. They are gone, gone, gone. It ain't going to be just 2 ACC schools. If we're not in a whatever the world, like deep depression, whatever, aliens have invaded us, whatever that is. I'm joking. Kind of. The current language would require any school exiting before June 2036, the current language, to pay 3 times the annual distribution. But not anymore. Not anymore. Okay. Sources told ESPN that there'd just be one number to exit the league, not the combination estimated by Florida State of a traditional exit fee and loss of media. So if this reporting is accurate, and it's Pete Thamel, for God's sake, I know some of you have a problem with them, and I'm going to get in trouble with some of you, but This is Pete Thamel. This is going to be accurate. We're going to go through the Ross Dellinger next. There's going to be one number, and is expected. We don't know if it's 89.8 million or 92.6 million or 75.645 million, but it's going to be below 100 million. And $100 million in 2030, 2029, 2030, Florida State's going to write it. Clemson is going to write it. North Carolina's going to write it. Miami's going to write it. And there probably is going to be a couple more schools leaving to go to the SEC or the Big Ten. And then you've got the Big 12. Let's now go to Ross Dellinger's article. We got to hit the Ross Dellinger article. John Till, SMU could be Big Ten path into the state of Texas. Unfortunately, no, it won't be SMU. If the Big Ten goes into Texas, it's just not going to be the Ponies. Great academic school, got a lot of money, got a lot of good people, SMU, but that ain't going to happen. Who knows? Look, we can talk about SMU. We're going to be talking about SMU. We're going to be talking about this for the next 4 or 5 years because the breakup is happening. Now, the ACC still might exist. It most definitely still might exist. Louisville and Pittsburgh and Virginia Tech and whoever doesn't make it to the Big Ten in this, they might be, they're probably talking already. But there's third-party talks going on. There's going to be communication going on. We reported, Peek Around the Corner reported that Louisville and the Big 12 has had third-party talks, and then a couple weeks later, some national reporters reported that. So there's already stuff going on, guys. And then you've got the ACC, Jim Phillips going in the Holy Smokes Theater when it comes to private capital. There is so much going on. Okay, let's go to Ross. Thank you, John Teal, for the super chat. Let's go to the Ross Dellinger article. Now, we're going to skip over most of this, but there is a little bit more detail in this. ACC is nearing an agreement with Clemson and Florida State to end litigation. ACC presidents expected to meet Tuesday. The change to the revenue distribution structure, perhaps the most interesting piece of the settlement puzzle, and could pay the way for the leagues to distribute revenue unevenly. Other leagues, right? Other leagues, like the Big Ten, like the SEC, when they do their next media rights agreement, their payments could be done unevenly, no doubt about it. An additional component would reward more league revenue to schools who invest more into their athletics. Another metric that would likely favor Florida State and Clemson. This becomes sort of a death spiral, though, right? If you got more money, you're going to invest more money. And if you invest more money, you're going to get more money. So, boy, we're going to, look, while this agreement is going to happen in the ACC, while there are going to be 4 or 5 years of stability, there's going to be a lot of hard feelings, guys and gals. I mean, some of these schools are being strip-minded. No question about it. No question about it. The initiative, I want to hit this, as well as the new media value bonus pool, is an attempt for Commissioner Jim Phillips and league administrators to reward winning in a way that helps close the financial gap between the ACC and the two richest conferences, the SEC and the Big Ten. The difference in payout for the school that ranks first in the ACC and 18th could be up to $20 million annually. So if you are finishing last in the ACC 2 out of the next 3 years, you are dropping way behind in resources. And that is only going to weaken the bottom half of the conference. Eventually that does weaken a conference, but I don't think the top branded schools at this point are looking out for the conference. They're looking out for themselves in 29 and 2030. I want to get to, here we go. The settlement is believed to establish financial penalties for leaving before the grant of right expires after the 35-36 academic year. I don't, that's, a lot of this is we're just, okay. So school officials have felt if they are legally unhinged from the ACC grant of rights, there will be takers. But it is unlikely that any SEC or Big Ten school would agree to accept a reduction in TV distribution. That has kept, Florida State and Clemson, there are not the takers there. There are not, we said on June 15th, 2024 in the Holy Smokes Theater that Petiti and Sankey left the building. Okay, that's about it. I think we've got the big parts of the story, the distribution differences, and of course, the 2030-31, where there's going to be supposedly one number, not 2, not 3, not 4. You don't have to add it all up together. There's going to be one exit number, and it's going to be less than $100 million. So, before we get to your phone calls, I'm just going to give you we're going to call it speculation, although it fits with the chatter behind the curtain. If everything, there's going to be major changes in college sports and everything, but if everything tracks like it is, the top biggest brands in the ACC are going to be leaving. It's just the reality of it. The SEC is going to want to have North Carolina. Probably North Carolina in Virginia. And if they get North Carolina and Virginia, that could open up for more expansion for the SEC. That is what the chatter behind the curtain is. It's like if Florida State, North Carolina, Virginia, Clemson, Florida State, it is an absolute possibility. The SEC, they're now looking to expand their conference right now, but we're going to be hitting we are hitting that student apocalypse right now. SEC wants to expand their footprint. They wanted more of a diversity of students. They want the state of North Carolina. They want more international students. The SEC schools are going to want to have more and more students as we drop. Again, the student apocalypse is upon us. The SEC has already got, they've got ESPN in Charlotte, ACC offices. They want North Carolina. They want to rub shoulders with UNC Chapel Hill. They also want Virginia. And if they get those two, again, this is you guys want to hear it? Now that we've got a pretty much of a date certainty and a cost certainty, if everything gets approved tomorrow, there's going to be a lot of speculation in the next 3 or 4 years. We might as well start it now. The Big Ten's going to try to do all they can to get North Carolina. But I'm telling you, North Carolina and Notre Dame, just like I've been saying for the last year, are the biggest dominoes. North Carolina falls a certain way to the SEC. The SEC is going to grow. And the Big Ten. Well, when we talk about the Big Ten, and I'm going to say this before we get to your phone calls, and we're going to open up the phone calls right now, and we're going to have them open as long as needed. And you can talk about, speculate however you want to go with this. You can be angry about it. You can be happy about it. And you can tell me what you think is going to happen in the future. But let me hit upon the Big Ten. Again, Notre Dame. Now people are rolling their eyes and say, Greg's talking about Notre Dame again. Well, Notre Dame and North Carolina are the schools that the Big Ten wants. And they might not be able to get to North Carolina. Maybe they can. I would say the SEC is a chalk. We've talked about that. Notre Dame without the ACC. Notre Dame with the top brands leaving the ACC. An ACC without the Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, Virginia. Possibly North Carolina State, whatever. Maybe a couple. Miami. We'll get to Miami in a moment. You think the ACC is still workable for Notre Dame? Remember that Notre Dame wants to have, they have that scheduling agreement with the ACC. Notre Dame has said they need a place, a viable, competitive environment for their Olympic sports. If the ACC loses those teams, those top brands, is the ACC viable enough for Notre Dame to stay independent in the football program? That is a big, big question. That's a huge question. Because if, and again, just speculating here, not reporting, speculating that if North Carolina and Virginia and Clemson and Florida State go to the SEC, I don't know how many games they're going to be lining up with Notre Dame, because they're going to be in the SEC. I mean, my God. Big time Florida State and Clemson, big time football programs with those big crazy fans, and North Carolina and Virginia, of course, they bring great value to the SEC because they're big footprint basketball schools, all those high school students that they've got in those two growing states. Can you imagine having the Gore essentially be changed? And it has been. If you got a cost certainty of less than $100 million after the 29-30 season, the Gore has been changed. Not formally, but it's been changed. You think that's good news for Notre Dame? That ain't good news for Notre Dame. So, again, for the Big Ten, it's about picking up the phone in a few years from now. Right? First party talks. They're always talking to Notre Dame anyways. And if Notre Dame accepts to go in the Big Ten, and that is going to elevate the media contract, and the Big Ten is going to expand even greater. More teams. If you've got, then you've got to bring up the possibility if a Clemson, Florida State, Virginia, North Carolina, going to the SEC, you got a Notre Dame and Miami, possibly a couple more schools out west joining the Big Ten. Now you're looking at the possibility, the questions are going to arise, is the Big Ten and the SEC breaking off as a super league? That speculation is going to be in the air for the next 3, 4, 5 years. And then you've got Miami. I've said this before. BTM, Big Ten man, believes that Miami is going to be a Big Ten member. So by hook or by crook, they are coming in. He thought 2029. We talked about this last year. He may be out by 18 months or 2 years. Because of the market, because of the university, the diversity of that market is what the Big Ten media partners, that's what they want Miami. That's only been told to me about 1,000 times. So, so we'll see. And maybe, and we'll get on to other. Now, the Big 12, the ACC's got stability for the next 5 years. The top brands of the ACC are going to make more money than the Big 12 top brands. Quite a bit more money now. I think quite a bit more money. But the bottom of the ACC is going to make a lot less than the Big 12 schools. So when you're going to 2029, 2030, starting in probably 28 or 27, first party talks, who are the Big 12 talking to first? I think the Big 12 is going to be talking to Louisville, Virginia Tech, Pittsburgh, Georgia Tech. Although I think Georgia Tech might get a phone call from the Big Ten. But that is what the Big 12 is going to be calling. And those schools are going to have to figure out, are we going to keep the ACC intact? What are we going to do? But I think the Big 12 option, I think Brett Yormark doing this private capital deal, I think he's going to be ready to become, the Big 12 is knocking on the door to become that third power conference. Now, is it going to be a P3 world? Is it going to be 2 and then 1? Or are the Big Ten and the SEC going to break off? Of course, we do not know. This is all speculation, but the speculation is going to be continued now for the next 3, 4, 5 years. No longer is the ACC gore going to 2036. I know that is what is said on the piece of paper. But when you've got a cost certainty on a date of less than $100 million, according to the reports of this settlement, the gore is essentially 29 and 30, which means first party talks open up in 28, 27. We are about 2 years away from first party talks. We are 2 days away from major speculation. Third party talks. Wow. This is a major victory for Florida State and Clemson. They got what they wanted. I don't know how you can look at it any different. Okay, so they lost some money. I'm going to tell you now another victory that Florida State and Clemson got today. they had a lot of leverage. They gained more leverage because of the change in landscape. They got more leverage because of the Big 12 doing this private capital thing. They had a lot of leverage. One of the leverage points that Phillips had on Florida State and Clemson was the leverage that not a whole lot of people talked about. I talked about it, but not a whole lot of people talked about it. And that is, look, this was not helping Florida State and Clemson in the eyes of the SEC and Big Ten presidents. I got raked over the coals by Tigers and Seminole fans when I talked about it 6 weeks before Brett McMurphy. But it was true. I told you the truth. And now Florida State and Clemson, now they can work on all those relationships within the SEC and the Big Ten. Now there are the courts. Now they're not the troublemakers. Now they're not the trouble. Now they can be a good partner. It affected their brands within, especially in the Big Ten corridors, but in the SEC as well. Because those conferences do not want these schools challenging the gore and the payments and all that. They don't want that. So, to be blunt, Florida State and Clemson really needed to get this done. They had to lay down their swords. They did. But they also got the victory. This is better than I don't know what people expect. Now, some people thought they were going to get a victory in the courts and go out of the conference for $0. If you've got certainty in 5 years for less than $100 million, and you can say, look, we made a deal and now you got time to work on your relationships. This is a massive victory for Florida State and Clemson. And I hope you understand how I'm saying this, because I was the one who told you the truth a year ago about their standing. This is a major victory because it ain't going to be just Clemson and Florida State with a date certainty, the money. They're going to want North Carolina to take advantage of this. They want North Carolina to bolt in 5 years from now. They want Virginia to go with them. They want this to happen. This is a victory for Florida State and Clemson. In Miami, North Carolina, the year of Bubba Cunningham, they got what they wanted. Finally, they got the kumbaya moment, everybody together, and this is what they wanted as well. We're going to get to your phone calls right now. You can tell me how wrong I got it once again. Let me get to some very generous super chats here. John Till, Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina went to the SEC. Miami on the Big Ten. Would Georgia Tech get lucky enough? Georgia Tech, I think, now, a couple of years ago, last year, I would have said Georgia Tech is not in the mix. They are on the periphery. I think they're going to be in the mix. I think they're going to be on the Big Ten expansion list. I think now, depending on how the other dominoes fall, depending on what Notre Dame does and how much that greases the skids for more, and depending on, so like a Georgia Tech, in my opinion, as we sit here today, and it could change, but on a March 30th, a Georgia Tech, in my opinion, their future and what happens to them, be part of an academic conference in the ACC or whatever, may have to do with the Big Ten and SEC, their decision on whether they do a 2-conference breakaway. If they do a 2-conference breakaway, if they go up to 48 teams, for example, again, highly speculative, but if they do that, then I think that increases the Georgia Tech to go into the Big Ten, to get an invitation. Highly speculative, but Georgia Tech is a Big Ten university in a massive market. They got other things that are going against them, but Georgia Tech, I think, is going to be in the mix. Thank you so much, John Teal, for your super chat. Terry Kane, Mr. Miami Hurricane, super chat. Thank you, Terry Kane, for your generosity. Syracuse and UConn would look good in the Big 12. Again, UConn. Maybe UConn did not get the greatest news today. You know? Or maybe it won't have any effect because UConn right now is in the mix with the Big 12 and Capital, Redbird Capital and everything. We're going to find out soon about UConn. But with a cost certainty and a date certainty on the ACC losing their top brands, in my opinion, and that's only 5 years from now, maybe not the greatest news for UConn. Thank you, John Teal, for the super chat. I do appreciate it. We are going to open up these phone lines right now. 763-260-1333. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to our channel. Hit the subscribe channel. Smash that like button if you like our content and share the video with your family and friends. I do appreciate it. The phone lines are open. The phone lines are going to be as open as long as you need them to be open. Breaking news. Breaking news. Massive victory. Massive victory.
Call from
Rick.
Rick is on the line. The floor is yours. Thanks for calling, sir. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks for taking the call. Real quick call. I'm just going to give you my 2030 picks for the 6 teams that are going to go into the Big Ten. On the right side of the map, we'll go with Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, and Miami. And then we'll go over to the left side of the map, and I think we're going to get Stanford in. And we're going to head southeast and land in Phoenix and pick up those Sun Devils. And then this last one is going to, I've definitely, the cheese has fallen off my cracker.
Yeah.
Team number 6 is going to be the Houston Cougars.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be Houston. I would put TCU and Texas Tech and Kansas above all that, but I don't think it's going to be Houston.
And the way I've done it is, of course, Notre Dame, and then Georgia and Florida, and then California, the San Francisco area, the Phoenix area with Arizona State, and then a team out of Texas. But Houston seemed.
They don't have the brand intensity in that massive city. It just doesn't.
They don't. Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
But it sure is a massive city.
It sure is. Yes, it is. Yeah.
And even you've mentioned before when you take a really good team out of a big city, like a Miami, you kind of complement it on the other side. When you get the academics on one side, you put the other side of the equation. Yep. Maybe the academics aren't as important.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, man.
We'll see. Can't wait for 2030.
Yeah. Well, no, there's going to be a lot of stories between now and then about all this, right? There's going to be athletic directors talking, presidents talking, big boosters talking, reporters reporting. There's going to be a lot of steam. There's going to be a lot of third-party talks. I'm telling you, man. We had third-party talks. Rick, we had third-party talks going on when there was no end in sight in this courts. When it was up against the wall, Florida State and Clemson, we had third-party talks going on when there was no sunlight. No sunlight. And now there's a whole bunch of sunlight if this gets done tomorrow, Tuesday. The third-party talks, I mean, I'm going to be reporting on it when I'm not embargoed. So buckle up. We're going to have a lot of stuff going on here.
Yeah, I think it'll get done tomorrow because of the pressure that Yormark put on them with the naming his final three contenders. I think they read the writing on the wall. Hey, we got to get something going here.
Yeah.
And in Notre Dame, they got to do something.
Yeah. I don't think. See, I don't buy the theory. I understand the theory. Good, smart people believe in the theory. I don't know. I don't buy that Notre Dame is gonna be satisfied to join an academic ACC conference. I think, when 29 and 30 comes around, the walls are going to continue to close in on them. I know they're an incredibly successful athletic department right now as it is. But man, without the top level ACC conference, a lesser ACC, I don't think that will satisfy Notre Dame. It won't have. Jack Swarbeck has talked about it. He said he gave all the things that Notre Dame needed to remain a football independence, and one of those was a good place, a home to put our other sports. And ACC losing North Carolina, Virginia, Florida State, Clemson. I'm highly suspect that Notre Dame is going to keep going on as is after 29 and 30. Could be wrong.
Do you think the Big 12 schools are going to want some unequal revenue sharing now that the ACC is?
You know what? I don't think so. I mean, I think that might be their selling point to Louisville and others in a couple years from now. But anyways, I want to get to other calls here. I do appreciate it, Rick.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Later. Yep.
I mean, I could be wrong, obviously. But maybe the Big 12 will. Maybe the Big 12 will. But again,
Call from
Mowing,
Mr. Buckeye. Now, I've got this show labeled Massive Victories for Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, and Miami. I cannot see how it's not a massive victory for those four institutions and a couple others probably. Moen, tell me how wrong I got it once again, Mr. Buckeye.
Greg, you got it 100%, 101% right. Huge win. Obviously, I think North Carolina and Miami are the biggest winners in this. They incurred no legal fees. They get their date. They get their number without having to spend a dime.
Yeah, and without rubbing people the wrong way and all that stuff. Yep.
Absolutely. And we talked about it on Thursday night. I mean, Yormark pulling that trigger, I think, gave Florida State and Clemson all the leverage they needed to get this settlement done, come to the table. Now, the thing that concerns me, though, Greg, is the ACC. We know the date's going to be 2029, 2030 now.
Yeah.
How is the ACC going to get a good private equity deal?
Private capital deal, probably. You know what? I don't know if they can or not, but I had heard a couple, and I heard Rock and Rant, Wild Jute mention that to you on your show. it wasn't so much rumblings. It was, I got the heads up that, look, Greg, don't shut that door because there is more activity with private capital earlier in the 2025 calendar year than anybody expected. So therefore, there's probably a lot more going on under the water that we can see. And it's probably, ACC schools are very active. So maybe look, I don't know how they could get it at a conference level because there's only, we've got a date of 29 and 30, right? But maybe they can, maybe there's going to be some schools that are going to get on the school level. I don't know. It's a great question. Great question. I don't know how they get it done. But there's there's rumors. A couple of them, none of them I can really there's a rumor about a couple ACC schools going along, doing doing something. So they're going to need money. And they're not one of the big brand schools. So.
Yeah, I just don't understand. I mean, you basically throw private capital out the window on a conference level. And if I'm Florida State, Clemson, and UNC and Miami right now, I don't really care.
Yeah.
With the money I'm getting, I'm only going to be, $20 million behind?
Yep.
Maybe $25 million for the next 5 years. I mean, it's not optimal, but it's doable.
Yeah.
It's very doable. You can make up that shortfall. You can get boosters to make up that shortfall. You're right. You could do a private capital deal on an individual school level to make up that shortfall.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, listen, the ACC, as we know it, is not going to exist in 2029.
I don't see how it can, to be honest. And we're not blowing smoke here. I mean, this is the end for ACC as we know them. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they might backfill with some AAC schools and still call it the ACC. But, I mean, you're going to lose 10, 12 brands total to these three conferences. It's not going to be the same ACC.
Yeah.
But, that's it. They basically signed the day that the conference is going to more or less fold and close their doors. So I don't know, Greg, but I think you're right about Notre Dame. The odds of them staying independent are slim to none, and Slim just walked out of the building.
I think so. I mean, if what Jack Swarbrick said was true. I've done more speculation on this program here than all the other programs I've ever done when it comes to ACC future, because now we've got a date certain and basically whatever that money is, right? We know what the cost certainty is. So now that we have that, the North Carolina domino is going to, in my opinion, Moen, is going to affect everything. If that North Carolina domino piece falls to the SEC, I think the SEC appetite grows, not shrinks. It grows. If they get a North Carolina, Virginia, I think they're gonna go after a couple big football brands in the ACC and lock it up as a 20-team conference. I could be wrong, but I think that North Carolina domino piece that is the big one, and everything is going to fall accordingly after that. What do you think, sir? We're just speculating. We're not reporting unless you have some information. I'm not reporting. I'm just speculating here.
Yeah, Greg, I don't know, but I'm going to jump off here, let some other people call in. I will let Immaculate. I know he's dying to call in. I'll let him make the case for Georgia Tech in the Big Ten.
Got it. You got it, man. Appreciate it.
All right. Take it easy, Greg.
You got it, buddy.
from?
Chris Kenny.
Chris Kenny, can you hold on for just one moment?
Sure.
Chris Kenny, you still there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hold on?
Sure, happy to.
I appreciate it. I got behind. I do apologize to Rock and Rant. I did not get to his super chat. I'm sorry. Thanks FSU Clemson for incurring all the legal costs. A hurricane always throwing the elbow. Thank you for the super chat, Rock and Rant. I appreciate it. Appreciate your generosity and support. And I do apologize for not getting you super chat earlier. My bad. John Till, if Stanford gets in, will Cal get Calamoni again? No, because they're not linked up together. I know that was a joke, but Stanford is a private school. California is a public, hitched on with UCLA. Thank you, John Till, for the super chat. I do appreciate your generosity so very much once again. Go ahead, sir. The floor is yours.
All right, Greg. Well, the last time I called you, Ross Dellinger came out with that thing about the Big 12's Redbird deals. So don't throw me off the ship again, okay?
Okay. Yeah, got it.
I'm teasing.
Yeah.
No, I think it's interesting in hindsight to look back at the timing of that story, that release that Ross came out with, because I do wonder now if there's a significant amount of pressure on Yormark to deliver a deal, because if I'm TCU or Kansas, and maybe a couple of others, but I think those are probably the two most attractive Big 12 teams, 5 years is not a long time. And the Big 12's deal expires, 2031? So you're kind of in similar exit dates for teams in both of those leagues at a time when the SEC and Big Ten contracts and the College Football Playoff contract are all kind of coming up around that same time as well. I don't know that if I were TCU or Kansas, I would sign a conference-wide deal unless there's some sort of flexibility that they have that doesn't bind them together. If it's something that's smaller in scale, like what the Big Ten's talking about, where it's kind of generating additional revenue at the margins, right? That's one thing through an institutional partner. But if it's something that basically gives Redbird a share of their media rights and is contingent upon them getting a new media rights deal, with that would come not just a grant of rights to the network, but also, commitment to the capital partner. I don't know that I'd sign that now in light of what the ACC has just agreed to. It's one thing if they had agreed to to continue, the penalties, the exit penalties for a grant of rights that expires in 2036, then fine, maybe there really isn't a big exodus in 2030 to the Power 2. But it seems like with what the ACC's done now is given all their big brands, as you've discussed, the opportunity to leave at a reasonable price in not a long time. I mean, 5 years will be here in the blink of an eye. If I were a Big Ten team with any aspirations of moving up into one of those two conferences, I wouldn't do that deal. So now maybe it's a school specific deals that get done. Baylor and West Virginia want to do them, that's fine. But I think there's a lot of pressure on Yormark to deliver a conference-wide one. And if he can't, and we just see school specific deals, then I think we have our answer, right? It's like that scene in Godfather 2. Like if the money's still on the table, I know I don't have a partner. So I think that's a very interesting dynamic to keep an eye on. The thing that I would also say is, like, I as we said when we talked last week, I do think that the final number for these Power 2 leagues is not 20. I would be surprised if it stays there. I think it's 24, and I think that's when the breakaway comes as a 48-team operation. I don't, I think there are a lot of people who maybe look at some schools and think that they are prey for the Big 12. I'm not sure I see that, because I think you said this when you talked a moment ago about Georgia Tech. If there's going to be a breakaway, then I think the ACC schools that have, number one, good relationships with the SEC schools that they play annually stand a very good chance of coming along. Like, I think Georgia Tech would come along. Yeah. I think Louisville has a decent chance of coming along if they're going to continue to play Kentucky. I don't think Oklahoma State has a chance in hell, because the bridges between them and Oklahoma have been burned. But if you look at those other schools in the ACC, I think that they could very very well fit into a 24-team operation in one league or the other. I think, for me, the SEC, they would need 8 schools to get to 24, right? So I would look at Carolina and North Carolina State, because I think that's politically impossible to do, one without the other. Virginia and Virginia Tech, I think, are in the similar boat. I don't see how you can take one without taking both. I think Duke is kind of connective tissue to Carolina. They bring a lot of value to the league beyond, not really in football, obviously, but the basketball brand is probably the strongest in the country. And if you married them up with Kentucky and Carolina, and then I would put Kansas in there as well, you have the 4 best basketball programs in America that aren't UConn, all under one league. And then I think Clemson and Louisville sneak in there too, because they've got their long-standing rivalries with those ACC schools. Now, maybe you swap one of them out for Florida State, but I don't know. I see Florida State as a Big Ten team. I don't know. You've been suggesting they're an SEC school, but I think they bring more value to the Big Ten. I don't see where they really bring that much value to the SEC. They probably haven't pissed off as many Big Ten people as they have SEC people. You would know better than that.
Who
but
are
I think
we talking about?
Florida State. I think Florida State, you've mentioned them in the SEC.
Yeah, Florida State's got a lot of work to do with the Big Ten presidents if they're going to get an invite. So, a lot of work.
So you think that I thought that they were,
No.
Well, let me remember. The comment I thought you made a while ago was that the door is not closed, that they've gotten the message.
Absolutely not closed.
There's things they need to do, but they've gotten the message on the things they need to do.
Yeah. Yep. All that is true. Doors definitely not closed. They're increasing the research. They're doing the right things. They got out of the courts, or they're going to get out of the court, which is something that they needed to do. Absolutely. But they're, they got a lot of work to do.
So just speculating, you think that the odds of them ending up in the SEC are higher than in the Big Ten?
Yes.
Interesting. Because I would have thought the opposite, that they bring less value to the SEC.
Well,
therefore it's harder to fix bridges than it would be with the Big Ten, because they bring more value to that league.
Yeah. I think the leading reason why I say that, and I could end up being wrong, and I might change my opinion on that, but the number one reason why I say that is because it goes back to Notre Dame for the Big Ten. And Notre Dame, and and Notre Dame is not the greatest fans of Florida State, to be honest with you. So that's another issue. Swarbrick, and they have said in public and in private, and I've been told that they don't, and I'm just being truthful here, being blunt. Sometimes I need to be. They don't even like traveling to Tallahassee. So Notre Dame is very, like, there was one evening where I got a call from BTM, and he said, holy smokes, Notre Dame is talking to Jim Delaney. They want to bring the men's hockey program into the Big Ten. And I said, what are you talking about? That ain't going to happen. Notre Dame loves their Big East hockey. They love it. What are you talking about? I mean, Hockey East, not Big East. Hockey East, whatever. And he said, nope. They're having talks right now. Greg, I want you to put that out on Twitter. And I did. I don't think I have that. But I was the one who broke that story because of BTM, and I couldn't believe it. And he kept feeding me the information. I kept reporting. Notre Dame absolutely did not like traveling to those Hockey East locations. And everyone thought they loved being in the hockey. In fact, they used to rip on the Big Ten, going, we would never join the Big Ten hockey camp. Well, they ended up having talks because they couldn't stand that travel. It's the same, and it's the same. They don't. In fact, and Florida State is not. Tallahassee is not the only place that they don't like in the ACC. I'm just being blunt. I'm being honest. Tallahassee's a wonderful place. Florida State's a wonderful school. The people are wonderful people. I'm just being honest. So, and they have this feeling so much that Swarbrick has talked about it a couple of times in public, not just in private. So, if Notre Dame is thinking about going to the Big Ten and everyone's having these talks, that is one. It's not like Notre Dame probably. I'm not saying they're going to have the veto power over Florida State. I'm just saying Big Ten, after all these years, if they got an opportunity to grab Notre Dame, they're going to say, Notre Dame, who do you want to bring with you? And Notre Dame's going to rattle off some schools. One of them might be Stanford. One of them might be Miami. Another one might be Georgia Tech. They might rattle off some schools. I don't think Florida State's going to be one of them. That is how I'm going with this right now. I could change my mind.
All right. Well, then I'm going with you. Let's swap Duke out and put Florida State in. And so the Big Ten to get to 24, we need Notre Dame, Stanford, Miami, Georgia Tech, Duke, and then pick one of TCU or Cal. And there's your 24 team Big Ten.
Okay. But then,
right. If
I go, but if all this is going on, first party talks, and Notre Dame picks up the phone for the 1,000th time and says to Petiti, nah, we're good. Then, maybe Florida State becomes more of a candidate. But I think
I don't see that. I don't see how that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't
because
think so
all those schools are going to leave to go to the SEC.
Yeah.
And this talk about like an academic ACC, that's where Notre Dame wants to be. You know what that conference is called, Greg? It's called the Big Ten.
Yeah.
It's called the Big Ten.
Yeah.
It's Stanford and Northwestern and Michigan and Wisconsin. That's just as good of a league. Okay, like that's the league that they will join. They're not going to play with Wake Forest and Boston College.
Florida State is too valuable, too big, just too valuable not to get where they need to go. So I think I would have it SEC. If not SEC, I think they're going to be. I think we'll see what happens here. I might change, but right now I got Florida State in the SEC.
All right. Well, I'm going with you then.
All right, buddy. Appreciate the phone call.
You're the man. Bye.
All right. Beautiful. We got other calls coming on in here. We're going to open up the lines as long as we need to. Go ahead. The floor is open. Whoever wants to call next, 763-260-1333.
Call from
Evil Badger.
Evil Badger is on the line. Holy smokes. The floor is yours. How you doing, Ryan?
I'm a little under the weather, but
okay.
I just seen your news about Florida State and Clemson settling.
Yes. Yes, they're settled. They're going to settle. It sounds like Tuesday.
Okay, so here's what I think is going to happen. First of all, I heard that the Big 12 has a 99-year gore. Is that true?
Yes and no. I'm going to make some people upset with me. It's 99, but it doesn't mean a hill of beans. How about that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that affects what I'm thinking as far as who's going to go to the Big Ten and the SEC. So I don't think Florida State is going to come to the Big Ten. I think they're going to go to the SEC. Miami, even though I don't like Miami right now, will head to the Big Ten with Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Kansas will head to the Big Ten.
Okay. The Jayhawks?
North Carolina will go to the SEC.
Who?
Duke will come to the Big Ten.
Okay.
So how many does that make? 22 in the Big and 20 in the Clemson will go to the SEC.
Okay.
Even though they really don't like the SEC because of what happened a couple years ago. And then Louisville and Pitt and Eastern will probably go to the Big 12.
Yep.
And that's what I think is going to happen. Do you think it could possibly happen earlier than 29-30?
I'm gonna say probably not. We don't know all the details, but it sounds like that penalty goes down drastically after the 29-30 season. So I don't think these schools are going to want to pay out a $300, $400 million exit fee when if they just go another year, they're paying less than $100. So I'm going to guess I think we've got a pretty good date certainty of after the 29-30 season. So July. So August, on or before August 15th of 2029, I think we're going to have ACC withdrawal documents. So then the teams will leave the ACC on June 30th, July 1st, 2030. So I think they become Big Ten members, SEC members, Big 12, or they reconstitute. If you're not filing an exit withdrawal on, so this is why. So if you're filing a withdrawal exit, a withdrawal notice, a notice of withdrawal. Good gosh, I'm going to get it right. I do apologize. If you are going to file a notice of withdrawal by basically August 15th, 2029, that means you're going to have first party talks in 2027, in my opinion, at least in the middle of 2027, because the SEC and the Big Ten legal councils are going to give those conferences and the Big 12 the okay to have first party talks. So I think this legally, it substantially increases in the middle of 27, and then you can have third party talks before that happens. So anyways, I don't know if that answers anything.
Okay. So one last question. Mm-hmm. I know that you said that Kansas was probably a good candidate for SEC. Do you think there's any possibility they could go to the Big Ten?
Sure,
that's the one team.
And I didn't even say there's a good possibility. I just said there'd be a candidate. If the SEC goes to 20, there'd be a candidate. Now, again, this is probably not great news for Kansas to get into the SEC, because if you have a date certainty that the ACC, the top brands can leave, and it's the same time around the Big 12 current GOR ends, that means there's a whole lot of, there's way more competition available. I think the chances of Kansas going to the SEC just drop some. But obviously there's still going to be an opportunity to get to the Big Ten if the Big Ten goes to 24. But yeah.
Okay. Well, that's all I had.
You got it. I appreciate the phone call.
Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you, sir. Great call.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. Great call by Ryan Willie. Kenneth Maynor, North Carolina.
From
Numbskull News.
Numbskull News. Mr. Horned Frog is on the line. Can you hold 1 minute, please?
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it. Kenneth Maynor, North Carolina is one of the fastest growing areas in the country. UNC and North Carolina State to the SEC is a lock. ESPN and SEC don't want to lose this market. Very good point. Thank you for the super chat. And of course, I'm going to continue to say this. Massive victory today for Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, and Miami, and probably a couple others. When I say that, probably a couple others, North Carolina State could be one of those couple others, and a Georgia Tech might be one of those couple others. So, and then, anyways, Kenneth Maynor, I do not disagree with you. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it so much. Numbskull News, go ahead, my man. The floor is yours.
This is the Numbskull Undertaker. We're here to harvest the organs of the ACC.
Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Wow.
And now, some things, as far as what's going to happen, we're going to agree or disagree on.
God.
But I just wanted to shout out certain ACC fans out there and just give you a big old fat I told you so. It's going to happen. It was always inevitable that if you strike a settlement, that was going to end the ACC as you know it. Why do I know that? Because we've already seen it. It's not like I have a crystal ball. It happened to the Big 12. It happened to the PAC. It's going to happen to you. So, welcome to the club. Now, as far as Big 12 teams going to the Big 10 and the SEC, I'm not saying this just because I'm a Big 12 fan, Greg.
Yeah.
But those 8 schools, those original 8 schools, and even the 4 that came in from the PAC, everybody called the Big 10 and the SEC not that long ago.
Yes, sir.
And they all got a big fat no.
You are correct.
All of them.
Yeah.
Now, what has changed in their value in the last 2-3 years? Absolutely nothing. And then, like you've just told the former caller there, when they are available and can possibly have an opportunity to get to one of those two, all of a sudden the big brands of the ACC are available, who are a lot more valuable than Kansas or even my beloved TCU. If I'm the Big Ten, I think I would probably rather have Miami just because of the eyeballs. If I'm ESPN, controlling the SEC, and I'm wanting to go straight to consumer, which means ESPN will be totally streaming, and a subscriber-based economy, I would rather have the fan base of Florida State, Clemson, Miami, a lot of those. Now, a point of contention, as you know, I have with UNC. I don't see the value for the Big Two. Now, I understand they're in a growing market, but as I said, ESPN is going to go straight to consumer, and there's really the economics are a little different now. There's no carriage fees associated with the streaming. So, and then your conference networks value are going to start going down because of all the cord cutting going on. Cable is dying. And so things are kind of, you have to look at what happened in the music industry. When streaming came up, it was total upheaval. Same thing is going on with cable and satellites, total upheaval. So the whole economic basis is shifting. And I could be wrong. I'm sure there are people in the SEC and the Big Ten that would love nothing more than UNC and their brilliant academics or their brilliant basketball. Football, not so much. That's the way I see it, Greg.
Yeah. Well, you bring a lot of great comments. Once again, I think I'm going to ask you a question here. Now we're just talking, right? I'm not going to hold you to this.
Oh, you can.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. We're just speculating. We're not reporting. Come on. This is hasn't even been there hasn't even been an official settlement. That's tomorrow, but there's going to be a lot of numbskull news on his program and everybody else. We're going to be doing a lot of speculating. We've been going to be reporting on a lot of other reports. We're all going to have a little bit of negative information, and we're going to be doing our own reporting. This is speculation time, no question about it. Numbskull news. I'm sure you've looked at this 1,000 different ways. You probably have what you think is going to happen in along the SEC and the Big Ten circles, but now you're looking at the Big 12. You probably have a good idea of who's going to be available. If you were the commissioner, you know what? I'm not gonna even ask you that. Numbskull news. Brett Yormark. Who do you think? You believe that Brett Yormark is going to target the 4 top targets of the Big 12, the 4 top available targets of the Big 12. And it's up to you to decide who do you think is going to be available, right? But the top 4 available schools that you think Brett Yormark is going to target to try to expand the Big 12 from 16 to 20 on July 1st, 2030. Go ahead, sir.
Well, the first person I'm talking to is Louisville.
Got it.
It's because they offer you the great brand in football and in basketball. That's hitting both of those is what's most important for the Big 12.
Yeah.
After that, I am really looking hard at Georgia Tech.
Okay.
And years ago, I wouldn't have thought so, but they really are a rising brand, and I don't know. I kind of like the idea of being in Atlanta. Virginia Tech, I think I'm right there with Virginia Tech. And, boy, after that, it's, kind of a toss-up because you're talking Brett Yormark here.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's Pitt or Syracuse if you're talking top 4.
Yeah.
Now, I would say NC State, but there's this weird tie with UNC. Another reason why I don't think it's going to be difficult for UNC, I believe, to get into the SEC because ESPN want NC State. I just the solely their beloved SEC. I don't know. No, I mean after Louisville, the first phone call I would make is UNC, if for no other reason, to say, hey, if all your delusions don't come true and you don't get into the Big 2, we're here.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just looking at, hey, just basics kind of stuff, yeah, it's Louisville, Georgia Tech, it's Virginia Tech, and I'm just going to go ahead and call it Syracuse. I know everyone says Pitt, but I kind of like New York,
One more question for you. And then we got other callers. I have studied this TCU football schedule, right? Because I've been trying to, rank my Big 12, way too early. I haven't done my way too early conference rankings yet. I'm scared. I'm really, really scared because I'm a moron and I don't get anything right. I'm scared to put it out there. I have been looking at this TCU football schedule. Look at their road games. At Arizona State. At Kansas State. At BYU. I mean, in the beginning of the season in Chapel Hill, Bill Belichick's first game at North Carolina. I mean, you've got yourself one hell of a road schedule.
12-0.
You sound like me.
I ain't scared of Bill Belichick. He ain't won nothing without Tom Brady, and Tom Brady ain't going back to school. Ain't worried about that game.
All right. Okay.
Arizona State, I'm worried about. Kansas State, Baylor, those are all tough games.
Yeah.
But I'm going Frogs, of course.
Yep. Josh
But,
Hoover, baby.
Realistically, the whole schedule, 10-2, I think you got to be super happy if you're 10-2.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All right, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, appreciate you, Greg.
Great call, sir.
Have a good show.
You too. Beautiful. Beautiful call. Numbskull News. You can check it out. Great college football YouTube channel. Mr. TCU Horned Frog. Ryan Willie. Numbskull. I'm not saying it will happen, but it's fun to speculate. I think he understands that. Ryan Willie, thank you for the super chat. Thank you so very much for your continued support of this program.
Call from
Tristan 5.
Tristan is on the line. Tristan, can you hold on a moment?
Yes, I can.
I'm just making sure. Daniel Gorby, who still think the ACC gore is ironclad? Maybe it's still. I mean, it did not get defeated, right? It's the numbers. It's the numbers that were changed through negotiation, going to the courts, battling, and everything else that's going on in college football. But the gore wasn't ripped out, but it was the penalties have changed. So the gore didn't get defeated, but the penalties, if the reporting is correct, has changed. And holy smokes, in my opinion, I'm using these words. It's just me. When you have the penalties, one number being less than $100 million after the 29-30 season, that essentially is changing the gore. But technically, it has not been changed. Daniel Gorby, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate it. Go ahead, Tristan. Thanks for your patience. The floor is yours.
Hey, well, thanks for taking my call, Greg. So I just wanted to comment a little bit about this. I think this feels like an agreement where I think, isn't there some old saying amongst lawyers that a good settlement is one where no one's happy? This feels a little bit like that, because I think the Clemson and Florida State people wanted out quicker.
Hold on a second. Hold on. We got breaking news. Tristan, I do apologize. I think I just did this to you before. Tristan?
That's all right.
I do apologize. That's very rude of me. I can't believe what I just saw. I don't know what to think. And I don't think I have access to this. Ladies and gentlemen, Tristan, I apologize profusely.
That's all right. No problem.
On 3 Sports, a source tells Andy Staples, hold on! A source tells Andy Staples a school could pay $200 million to leave the ACC once the settlement goes through Tuesday. That figure falls to well below $100 million should a school wish to exit the league after 29-30. And I cannot, and I'm, hold on, everybody. I don't have access to On3. Somebody in the PATC family has got to copy it, and put it into my DM. Please, somebody. Holy smokes. If this is true, breaking news. I can't even get to again, I'm going to repeat this. We're going to Tristan, a very valuable member of the PATC family. A source tells Andy Staples a school could pay $200 million. That is cost certainty. Once the settlement goes through Tuesday, $200 million? Are you going to wait? Are you going to wait 5 years to pay less than $100 million? If you've got a possible invite to the Big Ten and the SEC, hello, North Carolina. Tristan, the floor is yours. Again, I apologize, sir. I just scrambled the board for you. Go ahead, sir.
Well, Greg, I wish I could have gotten this out maybe 60 seconds earlier. What I was actually going to call and ask was if you knew what the numbers were prior to the 29-30 exit. And my line of thinking was, if that number is reasonable, I mean, obviously it's going to be higher than the $100 million. But my line of thinking was, if it's a reasonable number, they're probably going to go ahead and exit early. And Greg, I'm expecting that the exit of whoever's going to leave is going to coincide with the 16-game playoff when that starts. So I think for like the next year or two, we might have the 14 team. And then I think once they make that final push to get it to 16, then you're going to see the schools that are going to leave, and it's going to coincide, their exit and going into a new conference is going to coincide with a 16-game playoff, or 16-team playoff, excuse me.
Wow.
That's what I think is going to happen. And I was going to ask you about that very thing, because I thought that might be the real hidden truth in all of this, was that it's a reasonable number. So, Greg, there's a couple of things that people should think about. Number one, this comes right on the heels of that Florida Supreme Court decision. Okay, I think that the ACC felt like as long as they could keep all the proceedings, all the legal proceedings in their courts, that they could probably squeeze out that giant grant of rights number. But once it went forward, once the Florida Supreme Court said, no, we're going to go ahead and settle this case here in our courts, that is when they realized they weren't going to be able to get the $500 million or whatever the number was supposed to be for the grant of rights. I think that was a momentous decision that spurred this agreement.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think you are correct. I am, if we get, Tristan, if we get confirmation, if we get confirmation that the source telling this to Andy Staples is correct on 3, that after tomorrow, if the settlement, if it's signed, sealed, and delivered, if it's only $200 million, and that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. But you're talking $200 million 5 years prior to paying $100 million. And if you got an invite to the Big Ten or the SEC, you are paying the $200 million instead of waiting 5 years for $100 million.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And one other thing. My head is spinning right now. Because if you've got a $200 million cost certainty and you can get out with no... I'm getting an echo here, Tristan. Can you turn me down wherever you are?
Wait. Well, let's see. I don't have any volume going on.
Okay. Well, I'm getting an echo. Anyways, if you have a cost certainty of $200 million, and if there is no legal wrangling, if it's clear cut, then, ladies and gentlemen, I'm almost afraid to say this. I'm afraid to say this. But if that is the case, you might just have the legal room. The SEC and the Big Ten might have the legal room. If North Carolina picks up the call, I think they're going to answer and they're going to be able to talk. If Florida State calls, they're going to answer and be able to talk. If Clemson calls, so forth and so on. Same thing with that $200 million. If you can go out at $200 million, that's a better price than $100 million 5 years from now, because you're going to get that exposure, extra media money, and you're going to get certainty of being in the Power 2 if you can get in there. Am I off my rocker, Tristan?
No, I agree with what you're saying. I think that the thing here, Greg, is that we're not done realizing all of the revenue advantages that the Big Ten and the SEC have.
Yeah.
I mean, they just keep piling these new little wrinkles onto all these agreements, and over time, their numbers just keep going up.
Yeah.
And the $20 million, I mean, I remember there was a point in time where we used to say, well, yeah, there's a $20 million difference. Now I think it's starting to creep up to like $40 million. And it might even go higher, right? So like the AQs and the playoff, and then, of course, the ACC wasn't going to have as many. The scheduling agreement between the two conferences, you know, all of these things added together was just going to make that differential just go way up. And I think you're 100% correct. I think $200 million today is less than $100 million in 2030. And the schools that have a for sure landing place will start trying to make the move, I think. But again, I think for the conferences, the Big Ten and the SEC, Greg, it takes a couple of years to get accustomed to the new schools that they already have. And I still think that they're going to hold off until they get to that 16-team playoff scenario before they expand again.
Okay, I got to get to this rock and rant. Mr. Hurricane has been kind enough to give me all the words to the article. My jaw is hitting the floor right now. My jaw is hitting the floor right now. Tristan, I'm going to let you go.
Okay.
I appreciate the phone call. Great phone call once again. And, sir, I do want to apologize for cutting in on you like that.
Hey, no problem. It's an honor to have news break during my call.
Got it. All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Keep up the good work, Greg.
You got it, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I know we've been on the air for a long time. We're going to have to be on the air for a lot longer time. My wife has safely landed in Mexico City. Got a call from a text message. So she is safely landed in Mexico City. So I don't have to worry about that. They're going to have to take another plane trip to Veracruz in a couple days. They're going to visit my mother-in-law's hometown in Veracruz. Okay, Rock and Rant, wherever you are, thank you for giving me this information. I'm going to read it to you. I don't think you should leave quite yet. People in the chat room, Annie Staples. There will be a number. That's what truly matters as Clemson and Florida State move to settle their lawsuits against the ACC. And the ACC moves to settle its dueling lawsuits against the schools on Tuesday. When the settlement is complete, there will be a dollar figure that an ACC school can pay to no longer to be a member of the ACC and to no longer have its media rights controlled by the ACC. The ACC will spin this settlement as a victory, and given the circumstances, its attorneys probably got the absolute best deal they could. But if the reported number is accurate, then the clock already has begun to tick on this version of the ACC. Make no mistake, Clemson and Florida State got what they sought. That's why we titled this live show, Massive Victory for Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, Miami. There is no question about it. Make no mistake, Clemson and Florida State got what they sought. Their worst case scenario, staying in the ACC through June 2036 at a revenue share they found wanting, was always much better than the ACC's worst case scenario. Everyone can leave the conference without paying anything. Clemson and Florida State will make more money through an agreement to give more to the schools that get better ratings, win, blah, 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 blah. More important, Clemson and Florida State got a number. When the ACC sued Florida State and North Carolina in 23 as a preemptive strike because Florida State was about to sue the ACC in Florida, the ACC argued there was no number. Yes, there was a defined exit fee, 3 times the annual conference payout, about $120 million. But according to the ACC, there was no number a school could pay to buy its media rights back before July 2036. We said that. I mean, there was no number, and they did not have to accept the check if you gave them a number. Because according to the ACC's lawsuits, the grant of rights was irrevocable. The league then had to sell Florida State rights back. Again, the ACC did not have to sell its rights back. They did not have to accept the check, even if you wrote a big old check. Okay. Now there will be a number. I skipped a few paragraphs here. Now there will be a number. A source told On 3. Oh my God! Oh my God! A source told On 3 a school could pay about $200 million to leave the ACC once the settlement goes through Tuesday. That figure falls to well below $100 million should a school wish to exit the league after the 29 and 30 school year. That number feels quite manageable, especially for schools that would have 3 or 4 years to get their ducks in a row. And they don't need to have 3 or 4. What massively important event happens at the end of the 29-30 school year? That's when the Big Ten current media deal expires. If the Big Ten wanted to expand beyond its current 18, that would be the year to do it. Even though the SEC's current deal doesn't end until 2034, its best chance to keep the Big Ten from encroaching on its footprint would be to make a defensive move that year. I got something to say. But I'm going to keep going here. This isn't only about Clemson and Florida State. North Carolina played the loyal conference soldier publicly, but the Tar Heels officials were watching everything going on in the courts of Florida, North Carolina, and South Carolina. Miami officials likely watch closely as well. Everyone wants to be in the Big Ten or the SEC, and those 4 would be the most likely candidates to move. Or maybe they won't. Maybe uneven revenue distribution, which has torn apart conferences. I'm not. Maybe they won't move because of the uneven. Well, the problem with the uneven thing is you close the gap, but half your conference gets weak and weaker. And okay. I don't know how much I want to. I just, the $200 million mark. Because as of Tuesday, there will be look, ladies and gentlemen, I kind of disagree with Andy Staples here. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not trying to, I don't do things for clicks. I don't advertise this. I don't do, there's 1,000 things I don't do well. But this is one of the things I do well. If that report is accurate, if that $200 million, if that number is accurate, if that is a cost certain, you're not waiting 5 years to pay $100 million. That you don't need 3 or 4 years to get your ducks in a row. If you're North Carolina, if you are North Carolina, you are going to the North Carolina Board of Governors, and you're going to have a meeting, and you're going to say, look, we get it. North Carolina State, we get it. We get it. We're going to have to do something for North Carolina State, but if you're looking at the best interest of North Carolina Chapel Hill, $200 million, hell, we got boosters that will put, if they can go to the SEC or the Big Ten, and the boosters are going to be more energized by the SEC. You're going to have talks happening this week, at the end of this week. If it's $200 million, Florida State and Clemson, they're getting on the phone. We're going to have first party talks this week. They're going to be able to get $200 million. They're going to pay that out if they can get an invite. And they may still have to need they may still have to need North Carolina to poke the hole, or Notre Dame. We're still in this situation where Washington and Oregon only got half the money. It ain't like Florida State and Clemson probably can come in at full tilt. But I don't think they would even care. If you have, same with Miami. If you have a cost certain, a date certain, like the day you pay the $200 million, and you've got landing spots certain in the P2, and even if that P2 landing spot ain't giving you the full boat, you do it. You do it. This isn't brain surgery. This isn't, you do it. You do it. Now, $200 million it's $200 million, you see, that's all doable because it's all certain. Even, okay, it ain't, if it's $200 million and you can leave the conference and regain your own media rights, then Louisville, they're probably not going to pay it. But what I'm saying is Louisville, Virginia, these schools are going to have first party talks after tomorrow. I mean, I don't think people understand the ramifications of this. I really don't. If that report is correct, if you can get out This story has changed if Andy Staples' reporting is correct. No cloak, all dagger. Absolutely. Let me see here. Give me a moment, and then I'm going to open up the phone lines once again. Please give me a moment. I'm going to try to see if I can get any confirmation. Let me send some email here. Hold on, everybody. First of all, let me fix this. This is... Yeah, the one part of, and I'm going to go ahead and say it. The one part of the reporting of Andy Staples that I disagree with is the 3, 4, 5 years of getting your ducks in a row. You pay the $200 million if you got a spot. You pay the $200 million now. Don't wait 5 years to pay the $100 million. Okay, let me open up the phone lines. Phone lines are open 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. I mean, just the difference.
Call from
Rock and Rant.
Rock and Rant. My first question to you, has this $200 million been confirmed by anybody else? And maybe it hasn't, and Andy Staples is a high-quality reporter. He wouldn't be... On3 has a high-quality platform if sources are telling them. If that is true, Rock and Rant, this story has completely changed even from when it begun earlier today. Go ahead, sir.
Oh yeah, it's insane. And you know, for me, I literally, and I've never had to do this for a call with you. I literally have like notes where I'm writing bullets, so I don't forget all the things I want to talk about, including some things we haven't discussed. But real quick, and I'll leave it to the other CPAs and financial modeling wizards out there. But if you just go back to the basics to your $200 million question, and I haven't seen a reported elsewhere, but there's a fire hydrant of news coming, right? So I guess we'll find out pretty soon, I'm sure, by
tomorrow,
second source.
Yeah.
So taking aside the other things that could come to you from a school going to the Big Ten and the SEC, right? Like the brand value, more people in their seats, ad revenue, all that other stuff, right? If you're just going about your revenue currently, all you need, it's basically if it's now 2025, right, end of calendar school year 2025, you're leaving versus 2029, 30 years, it's 5 years. Essentially, it's like, do you pay $200 million now versus $100 million later, and to just break even with, it's like $33 million. So if you were just doing it purely on the basic math of it, it's $33 million a year extra revenue from a math-only part of it, basically keeps you even, right?
Yeah.
Keeps you whole from like why you would spend $200 million versus later. That has nothing to do with would you get a brand, you know, where the conference you go to gets the private equity zone, your ad rates for your own in-stadium stuff. If you're a school that doesn't sell out and now you sell out because of a better roster, that revenue. But that's the number. The quick and dirty math, like somebody will do a better version and, you know, changes if it's like in another year, but like 33 to 40 million is I want to remain whole and even. That's the number you would need from like a revenue perspective. So then if you're any of these schools, you're like, all right, so Big Ten is only doing a half share to Washington and to Oregon. I think it's pretty safe to say that even in your worst case scenarios for either conference, Florida State, Clemson, and Miami and North Carolina would at least get the same media dollars that they're getting in the ACC, right? Because it's already so far below the other two. So even if they didn't get a half share and they just had to do like a, getting basically a rollover in some form because that's all that was available, they would be fine doing it anyway, right? Because of the other halo effects that happen to your school and the opportunity. So if the Andy Staples report is true and it's only $200 million, you're 1,000% right that conversations are going to happen instantly. So I'll pause on that one because that was the new news, and then maybe go into some of the other related points before the breaking news broke the breaking news.
Got it. Hold 1 second. Just before you go on, let me just get caught up, and then I want to make a comment, okay?
Sure. Absolutely.
Whew, man, I am way behind. I do apologize to everybody in the PATC family. Ryan Willie, RIP, rest in peace, ACC. Thank you for the super chat. Ryan Willie, welcome to the Big Ten, Notre Dame. Thank you, Ryan Willie, for the super chat. Ryan Thomas, controlled demolition. There'll be no private equity or private capital. Ryan Thomas, thank you so much. John Teal, I don't think conferences will wait. Imagine the egg on the face of the SEC if they sit tight and the Big Ten takes North Carolina, Florida State, Miami, Clemson today. I'm going to talk about that with Rock and Rant just now. I was thinking about that before I read John Teal's comments. Ryan Thomas, Petiti and Sankey, start your engines. I think they just went back on the Holy Smokes Theater. Azon the Kid, $200 million equals ACC debt in 2 years. TV will cover the exits. I don't know about that. I just think, and I'll get into it, I don't think the medium are, I don't think we're in this where they're going to be handing out. I don't think TV will cover the exits. I think the schools will have to cover it. I think they might even take a little bit of I don't know about that. Azon Kid, thank you so much for the super chat. Appreciate it so much. Morris Simmons, Florida State could go independent until Big Ten ready. Florida State could play the best teams in the Big Ten, the SEC, and the Big 12. I don't think Florida State's going to have to go independent. I don't think that's... I appreciate the super chat, but I don't think Florida State needs to think that far out of the box anymore. Thank you, Morris Simmons. I do appreciate the comment and your incredible generosity once again. Rock and Rant, there's a couple things I want to say, and then you're going to be breaking more news, talking more stuff, but I need to get... God dang it, I keep screwing this up. Okay, one is... a couple of things. I'll just rattle off and then let you take over. Somebody in the chat said, "Oh, I lost it now. $200 million versus 570. This is great." It's not. It wasn't only about the $570 million. We weren't even certain about that number, and the ACC didn't even have to accept your check. That was the problem. $200 million is a whole lot better because of a certainty. Like, they're going to take the check, and you are out. So it's the certainty. But the other part I want to get to Rock and Rant on is, if this is accurate, and it's $200 million, and you are clear, you are absolutely clear, starting after tomorrow, if everything is signed, sealed, and delivered. Rock and Rant, now we've got the situation in which the Big Ten is looking over with their periscope, and they're looking at Birmingham, Alabama. The SEC folks got their eyes through the periscope, and they're looking in Rosemont, Illinois. They're looking at each other. And that fear that someone's going to work on they're going to work on this without the other ones, with the other ones sleeping, that is going to drive this thing even faster and quicker. If this reporting is true, Rock and Rant, go ahead, take over.
Well, I think that one, that will just be delicious, right? Because it would almost be the sequel to the Alliance, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're together,
Yeah.
and now we're doing our scheduling agreement, and we're doing these other things. And oh my God, look at this settlement. Let's see how we can make sure we don't get knifed in the back while we're stabbing one in in their face.
Yeah.
So that would just be awesome. I mean, I'm not going to change my take on what I think of Greg Sankey, how he approaches things, and you know he's doing the right thing for his commission, for his conference, just because like the tables may have turned. The other thing is kind of interesting. Let's say it's $200 million, and we go back in a year or two. The whole idea was that, in theory, the ACC exit fee was rumored to be around $125 million, separate from the grant of rights, because their operating costs are so expensive, right? 125 to 150. If it's $200 million, then you could almost say they're devaluing the future media rights down to like $50 million relative to what their cost of their quote unquote exit fee is. So you could sit there and flip it and say they wiped away their exit fee and you're just paying the media rights deal aspect of it. I did want to go back just to, I don't think anybody said this, and it's just because it's in the heat of it, and tell me where I'm completely wrong. Why would these other schools vote for this kind of thing if it's going to lead to this like on Friday or in 2030? There's no, look, it's the ACC and it's Jim Phillips, so I probably shouldn't say there's no way of doing something really terrible, but they all had to know that this was what the outcome of what they're about to vote on a couple of weeks ago, right? This didn't just happen in the last 2 weeks,
right.
maybe coming to a
yes, sir.
conclusion. So since they were doing that on the heels of having a conversation with ESPN, right, about the extension, they have to know what the plan, or that this is a likely scenario. It's not even like your worst case scenario. It's more likely your actual scenario versus like, well, there's a 1 in a million chance as opposed to like a 1 in 3 chance or a 1 in 2 chance. So I'm guessing that those schools have some idea and that this is going to happen. And because maybe ESPN encouraged them to settle because their grant of rights is in fact intact, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but not because it was definitely going to be intact. It probably would have, but with these court cases proceeding, this makes sure that all of their other grants of rights have not been defeated in a bad case in Florida, right?
Yeah.
So maybe part of the conversation was, look, there's a risk to us and to you that you can lose this, and maybe we don't think you should, but anything's possible in 2025 America right now. So let's give you some sort of assurances that if this thing happens and if people take the advantage of leaving you in 2 weeks because we changed this deal, or $100 million in 2030, that we'll be there and you'll be getting at least the money that your new brand deal is giving you, if in your worst case scenario, if not higher, right? So if you're going to be the 14th or 17th school in the ACC, even if these schools all leave, you'll at least get that money, maybe higher because you'll be higher in the thing. You'll still be above the AAC or whoever else it might be. So I think as much as the ACC has been incompetent, I think it's naive to think that they must not have an idea that this was going to happen and could happen sooner than they expect, and that those schools have an idea that they're not just being in the wilderness, because in one way they've also helped ESPN, their partner, make sure they didn't have a damaging loss for what grant of rights could be that would extend to other properties they have. So that was just one take I had on that.
Yep.
Then two other random things would be, in terms of the private equity zone, like, so before the $200 million possibility came, we're thinking $100 million in 5 years. You know, I know we've heard about the Big 12 possibly getting $1 billion, but I haven't heard the term of that. So there's nothing that says that the ACC can't do a private equity deal that is only valued at 4 years for all the conference members. If somebody said to you, hey, you can maximize the IP of Star Wars for 4 years, would you take it if you thought that the amount of investment would bring you a return? Most people would. They'd like a 10-year deal, but I don't know that there's they can't do a conference-wide deal in that time. It just really depends upon, what is available. I have no inside information there. And then the last thing I'll throw out, and then I'll pause and get your feedback, is I posted this on X too. Did today just completely screw the Pac-12?
Did it?
In their attempt, Did it completely screw the Pac-12 in their attempt to get anybody to want to come over to join them? Because now that you know what's going on in the ACC, people are going to assume there's going to be something, whether it's on Friday or in 2030, that they're going to be in a backfill position. And does that change? Like, maybe it doesn't change it for, if their option is Sacramento State, but does this like create the end of it when it comes to, Memphis, all those other schools?
Great point. I think, the Sacramento State and the Texas State options are probably still viable, but the other ones are probably, if they weren't out the door, they're probably out the door, right? Your Memphis, your Tulane, stuff like that.
Yeah. And if you're Cal, what do you do?
Yeah.
What is your first call if you're Cal? If you're Cal, what do you do with what's going on? Like, do you call the Big Ten again and ask? Like, in a contingency, are you like calling Washington State and Oregon State again as like your contingency? Like, what are you doing?
I don't know I do not know what I would be doing if I was California. Maybe I would just stay in the ACC and take that money that's coming in. Remember, if these schools are going to be paying $100 million or $200 million, let me whose corner hit on this. Let me ask you this question in this way. So we're gonna use Miami. Okay, we're gonna use Miami as the example, and they're a good example to use in this case. Miami. Let's say it all gets settled and the $200 million report is correct, and their legal counsel, they're like, or they call the Big Ten. The Big Ten says, yeah, we can talk. Now we can talk. First party talks. So Miami starts talking, and again, we're just speculating, ladies and gentlemen, just speculating. And the Big Ten says, yeah, we're interested in you guys. We can sit down, we'll look at the books, we'll get your valuation, your current valuation for Fox and the media partners, but there is interest. We all voted for you guys for AAU, and we know the value, blah, blah, blah. So they sit down and they talk, and the Big Ten says, we would like to invite you in whatever other school there is. Let's just say it's Notre Dame, okay? Since we're just speculating, we're going crazy here. But you know what, Miami? Look, no, not Notre Dame. Forget about that. That example won't work. We're just talking Miami. Miami has no idea what the Big Ten is doing otherwise. Okay. By the way, USC did not know that the Big Ten was talking to the UCLA and about to make that deal. So let's say it's the same situation with Miami. And the Big Ten goes to you, Rock and Rant. You are the president of Miami, and says, we would like to grant you an invitation to join the Big Ten. You're coming in at the same conference payout for the next 5 years as Oregon and Washington. After that, you're going to be a fully invested member of the Big Ten. Big Ten Network, all the payouts, everything that goes along with it. Now, you, Rock and Rant, you're looking at your scratch of paper and you're going, oh boy, Big Ten payout, $35 million because they're only taking half of the medium, blah, 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 blah. Miami, with this new uneven revenue share with the ACC, I might even make a little bit more than Oregon and Washington. And I got to pay $200 million to make a little less in the Big Ten, possibly, for the next 4 years. Am I going to do that deal? What say you, President Rock and Rant?
Black ink or blue ink? Right?
Yeah. I think so, too. And that is why, if this report is true, it's gigantic. What are we even talking about? If that report is true, this thing is gonna light up like a 4th of July celebration. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, like look, in year one of the Big Ten, let's just use the Big Ten deal, and like the numbers are sort of in my head. If you're Miami and you think you're going to come in the top three of the ACC success rate, TV ratings, right, and maybe get to the playoff or at least get to one of the better bowl games, you probably actually take a loss relative to that deal, right? Because you're going to get the baseline ACC and up to, give or take $20-ish million in the two different incentives. But you still do it before like you even fall asleep. Like you probably push back a little bit and try to argue, because then in 2029, if I'm not mistaken, you're in like Big Ten deal is $95 million, right? So you have to look at it blended or whatever that number is. Like I've heard everything from 90 to 105 million, like you might know off the top of your head. But either way, you're not thinking even in those terms. You're thinking of, do I want to live in Beverly Hills? Or do I want to live in Pompeii when the volcano like takes out the entire society? I don't think you're even thinking twice about it. You're then doing the math on like, what does this do for my endowment? Because what does this do for my research side for sure, right? I don't think anybody in Miami is going to be super excited that like Purdue's coming for an away game as far as like fans here, but Miami doesn't care ultimately in that kind of situation if you sell 5,000 more seats to Miami fans or put 5,000 Purdue fan seats, butts in the seats because they came down and brought tourism to the local economy. So I don't even know how long of a conversation would be. It's rumored that 30 years ago, the Miami had like 24 hours to like say yes to the SEC and dilly-dallied and it didn't happen. I don't think it takes 24 hours.
Yeah. Now, on the other hand,
I don't think so.
Now, on the other hand, Rock and Rant, you left just 5 minutes ago. You left the presidency of the University of Miami, and now you are the president of Louisville. And you quickly call the Big Ten, and they say, well, we're probably not going to have interest, but thanks for calling. You call the SEC, and they say, well, we already got Kentucky. Thanks for calling. You call Brett Yormark. You've already had third-party talks. You kind of know the lay of the land. And Brett Yormark's like, well, with this private capital deal, boy, there's so many things that are just entangled with each other. We're bringing in some money here, and we might be able to cut off a little bit of that slice to where, you pay that $200 million. You might be able to come out ahead, or at least come out even if you join us here soon. And, in 5 more years from now, Rock and Rant, president of Louisville, we might be all booked up at the inn at the Big 12 Inn. There might be some other, we're on the phone here with other ACC schools. Does Louisville even think about it, or do they wait 5 years?
I don't know. If I'm Louisville, my first thing would be, hey man, so like we had a sort of okay this past season. And I looked, and yeah, my TV ratings, I think, were 5th in the ACC, but my TV ratings would have been 2nd or 3rd in your conference. So are you sure you want to play that game with me? I think you push back a little bit, and, maybe you meet in the middle somewhere, right? Like, no one wants to be the last person looking for the last seat on the lifeboat.
Yes.
But, but they're also stronger, and they could push somebody off, from a Louisville perspective. That's my take. They've also danced a little bit before, right? In a different era with different people involved. Like Louisville could have already been there. So to me, they're going to be one of the likeliest, the big fish jumping to them in a world where what Big 12 might want to get. Like, of course, they would want a North Carolina or a Clemson, but those are probably not going to be available to them. Louisville's going to be probably the hottest girl to dance that's available to them.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's what I take. I
are
mean,
you guys,
unreal
are you
what
guys
happened.
doing an emergency show tonight?
Yeah, I don't know if they are pulling it together. I think everyone's like it's amazing how people can be in utter shock about news we all knew was coming. But I think everybody is, because like the fundamentals of what happened are, I don't necessarily think anybody could see it coming to the degree that we did. I, for whatever reason, thought that they would cut the grantor rights down to 2031. It'd be like $200 million, $250 million kind of thing. Something like that, give. But it feels to me that the ACC got pressure from ESPN to not roll the dice in getting.
Yeah, I think so.
And having their deal completely exposed and gave them some degree of assurances about it. I can't, or else it's totally basically, Florida State and Clemson gave up 3 years, but they at least minimized their cost by $300 million off of book value to do it, right? If everything was all in the $500 million number, and other than some brand damage, and maybe the brand damage turns into a problem for Florida State with Big Ten. I don't know. I leave that up to you. But either way, they're going to be fine. They're going to be in one of the Power 2 conferences ultimately, and I appreciate their effort. I'm not going to be a hypocrite and say that last year I wasn't completely pissed at Miami for not joining, because I was. The outcome might be great. I don't know if that's because it was just dumb luck. If it was because, hey, you guys go do it because you have the state entity behind you and it's got a better chance. I literally have no idea. I know I was pissed about it for a while, but the outcome is fairly decent in theory.
Yeah, this is wild. All right, I appreciate
it's wild.
That, man.
I'm babbling for a while. Let you go, but there's a couple of things there I just thought were interesting to think about.
All right,
man. Great show.
I appreciate it.
Do this for 4 hours. We would all stay on.
Yeah, I might have to. Thank you a lot. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Phone lines are open. Phone lines are open. Again, I'm a little rattled here. Andy Staples, there are videos everywhere. He's breaking this down, and he has again confirmed that about the $200 million. I can't listen to it, but I can. Ooh, baby.
Call from
Ryan Thomas.
Ryan Thomas, BYU Cougar. What the heck is going on? Holy smokes. Are you buying this $200 million starting tomorrow? I don't know what's going on, sir.
I don't know, but I will say one thing. I wanted to just remind people, having worked with this space in my career is dealing with M&A, PE doesn't do short-term deals, Greg, especially when they don't know the value of their product or what their investment's going to be.
Yep.
So, I mean, and especially if these numbers are true and people can get out that low, nobody's going to put money in that. The only thing they would probably do would be to loan the ACC money at some high interest rate, which I don't know if you're going to take on debt to get out, if you're really going to even agree to that. So I think that's just, it's interesting to me that there's no stability there. I don't know what will happen. If this is true, then I just think it's a controlled demolition. That's really what it is. You know, there's some time for people to get out, but I'm more curious to see if it is indeed $200 million. I'm more curious to see if that throws a wrinkle into the Big Ten SEC discussions right now, because now you've got sort of a rival aspect to it, and there'll be some tension. And if you know, and we all know that Greg Sankey, he's got long arms and he'll stab you in the back while he's shaking your hand. So, and I don't think Petiti's oblivious to that. So
I agree. I think, but I don't know, man. Unless it's a controlled demolition, like they've got this figured out, big time collusion, but they wrote it on a napkin and they ate the napkin, or they threw it away, or they ripped it up in a million pieces. Like, do they have this all figured out? I'm not a believer in that.
I don't think they are either, because here's the thing. At the end of the day, they have to report back to those presidents.
Yep.
And those presidents don't necessarily agree on everything. And as we saw what Texas A&M did with Texas and Oklahoma.
And they don't keep their mouths shut either. But go ahead. Yep.
They don't keep their mouths shut either. Yep. So I mean, I think that they're going to. I said this before, but do you remember how I said I don't think Greg Sankey's going to sit around and wait for UNC 10 years for UNC. You know, I think that's the aspect. But if this buyout applies to everybody, you know, that's really, it gets back to what I originally hypothesized a year and a half ago. If this buyout ends up applying to everybody, then what it might end up just being is whoever's in a better off or no worse better off a position. So meaning if they're in the Big Ten or SEC or making equivalent money in the Big 12, this will really only boil down to giving the 4 or 5 schools that get screwed, you know, $500 million or so to split amongst each other. Yeah. You know, and everybody contributes to that. That very well might be what it would be. I mean, that's how I would at least, you know, to phrase it. I think at the end of the day, maybe the ACC has something in mind. Immaculate said this many times before. Maybe there's a plan to reshape itself into being something that Notre Dame wants. I don't know. There's lots of different possibilities going on here, but this does not scream stability to me, Greg. So I'm curious. I mean, if it's indeed if this is true, if Andy Staples is right and this story is true, then I think it's really this comes down to whenever the SEC and Big Ten and the network partners are ready, it happens.
I think you're right. All Good 720 says Big Ten got a war chest of money. They do. The last report is they had $455 million.
Yeah.
But
they can loan the money to their targets.
Yeah, but and I'm going to sound like an idiot, okay, which I am, but that's 450. Now you said loan it to, right? Like,
or a portion of it, maybe. I mean,
or I don't think they would gift them much. I think it would be a loan because that's what they've done with everybody. Maryland, Rutgers, they're doing that with Washington, by the way.
Yep.
Oh boy, $200 million. I know that's a lot of money, Ryan, but but how valuable is certainty? You know, like you are in now. If you're able to get the invite, you're in now instead of waiting 5 years. Where I don't know, man. It's if this report's true, go ahead, sir.
I mean, I look. We saw how much money SMU raised, right?
Yeah. Good point.
What was $100 million or so?
Yeah, to get to the ACC.
I am very confident that FSU boosters, there's enough of them out there, and there's enough money out there. I am very, very confident that they can raise $200 million within a few months. I mean, if that's there, I don't think there will be any problem for and UNC and Clemson probably in that same vein too. And I know Miami's got a lot of money. At least four ACC schools. You know, those top 4. If they need to raise $200 million to get out from their boosters, I'm pretty sure that they will have no problem doing that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'll leave you with this. I'll let other people call, but it's back to Arrested Development, Greg. There's always money in the banana stand when it comes to realignment.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Take care, my
Appreciate
friend.
it.
All right.
Great
Bye-bye.
call. Ryan Thomas, BYU. It's just the certainty aspect of it. Like $200 million, if you got an invite, you're not going to pay $200 million and sit out there. If you got an invite, I'm gonna say something here.
from?
CFP Plus.
CFP Plus. Can you hold on for a moment? I gotta get up on my soapbox on something.
Absolutely.
Look, guys, I've had so many people get upset with me. That's fine. That's good. Florida State fans, Clemson fans, North Carolina fans, everybody. Because I keep talking about how there's no deals done. There can't be first-party talks. Big Ten legal counsel would not allow it. The SEC league, they're not. It was all true. But now let's flip the page. If there is a certain date, cost certain, if you can go out, if you can regain your media rights back for $200 million, if you've got that certainty coming Tuesday evening, I'll come back. I'm going to be doing a lot of live shows right now, but I'm going to come back here and apologize and tell you that I'm wrong if I'm wrong in this. But ladies and gentlemen, if this is actually true, the first party talks can begin. Look, I've had a million discussions on this. There's some things about USC I haven't even gone public with. When they first called the Big Ten in 2021, after the news came out of Texas and Oklahoma, a little bit after that, the Big Ten said, "Hold on, we can't talk right now." When they called in the early spring, they said, "Yeah, we can talk." I think the Big Ten gave USC a date. These legal counsels are so particular on this. If there is a clear out for an ACC school starting tomorrow where they regain their media rights by plunking down $200 million and the ACC have to accept it, I don't know. I believe that there can be first party talks. Now, some of you might be saying, Greg, first party, who cares, Greg? They're talking all the time. Not first party talks. They're not. They are not. Not when it comes to potential conference affiliation where you got the lawyer. No, that doesn't happen. Colorado meeting with Brett Yormark at Chicago on May 7th on a Sunday doesn't happen unless the Big 12 legal counsel says it can, and obviously it could because the Pac-12 grant of rights was leaving in the next year. If there's a cost certainty, if there's a gaining back your media rights essentially immediately once you pluck down the money, first party talks are going to start. And when you got first party talks, baby, they got the trading of the documents. The conferences looks at the university books, vice versa. They're talking about what can we do to help you? What can we do to help you to become a better candidate? These talks are intensive. Washington and Oregon had these talks with the Big Ten in Washington, D.C. and New York City. We broke that to you. So if we got these first party talks happening, if this is real, stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe to our channel because we're going to be giving you guys peeks around the corner constantly. CFB Plus, I apologize, sir. Thank you for your patience. The floor is yours.
Thank you, and no need to apologize. First, I just want to say how much I agree with what Rock and Rant said earlier about how shocked we are about news that we knew was coming.
Yeah.
My question for you is, now this is obviously going off the premise that this $200 million is true. If this is inaccurate, then obviously things change.
Yeah.
But if that's the case, why in the world would the ACC agree to this? Because to my understanding, I was under the impression that the FSU and Clemson, they would withdraw their lawsuits under some terms that they could probably get out sooner in the 2031, like we kind of expected, so that a private equity deal could come in and could invest in the conference. And so that's why you'd have schools like Boston College, SMU, Cal, Wake Forest. They would get on board with that because they would get a little bit of something out of it. But now with the $200 million exit fee, if that's the case, then it absolutely looks like a controlled demolition. And I don't know why anyone who is not going to be on a life raft to the Big Ten or SEC or maybe even the Big 12 would agree to that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you have thoughts on that. Why would someone or why would the ACC
maybe
agree?
I've only got a theory. Okay. The schools that won't be able to land on a P2, the schools that might probably be doubtful for Big 12, those schools are maybe they are obviously they're strapped. Obviously they can't do the rev share maximum. Maybe with all this, they're betting on people leave, they get all this money and they can survive, right? They use it for the rev share, right? They're able, all these exit fee money goes to them. They split it. That's going to be a lot of money. They can survive until 2036. Maybe they have plans to try to regroup the ACC like Oregon State, Washington State did, but they need money. Oregon State, Washington State got the money, right? And maybe they're plotting out, maybe they're sitting there plotting out going, man, if we wait to 2030, if we wait to 2034, 35, we're going to be, the conference is going to be gone. We're still going to be poor. We're going to be strapped. Maybe they need the cash so much that they told Phillips, let's get this deal done. I don't know. It's just a theory.
You know, that's an interesting theory. I don't know. I'm in shock that that's an opportunity because, you know, if teams if the exit fee is $200 million, I agree. First party talks, second party talks, they're going to begin almost immediately. And if that's the case, private equity is not going to touch the ACC with a 10-foot pole because that's too much of an unstable property to acquire. So I just don't understand why.
Now CFP Plus, you got to look at the theory again. We're speculating. We're just throwing this out there. If the $200 million fee, about $200 million, Andy Staples reported that after tomorrow you can get out of the conference at $200 million and regain your media rights. Now we got to look at the theory of the Big 12 and this private capital. You know, we thought maybe they were going to get all this money and then they were going to shore up the school's rev share, which is probably still the case, you know, improve the value of the account, whatever. But what if possibly some of it may have to do with paying, you know, help grease the skids for a Louisville, for a Pittsburgh, for a Virginia Tech to get into the conference? Maybe now we have to think back at that again. Who knows?
No, I agree. I actually left a comment earlier. I wonder if Redbird is on the phone or whoever initiated it, but I wonder if Redbird's on the phone with Brett Yormark right now saying, hey, we'll give you some more money if that means you can acquire schools in the ACC like Louisville. Since if they want UConn to be a part of, you know, allegedly, they want UConn to be a part of a private equity deal so they can increase their advertisement and sponsorships in New York City, you know, what does that mean for schools that are, without a doubt, probably more valuable, such as like Louisville, NC State, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech? I mean, they're in Atlanta. So, I mean, that also is a huge play or unknown. But it's so expected but so shocking at the same time.
Yeah.
So I'll leave you with that. I'm still trying to figure out what actually is going on.
Yes.
Like the rest of everyone.
Yeah. All right, man. I appreciate the call. CFB Plus. Brilliant once again.
Thank you, and thank you for the show.
Thank you, sir. Can you give us a summary of the news so I don't have to go back and watch from the beginning? Thanks, Greg. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. Louis Pop is in the house. Well, we got breaking news. I want you to go back from the beginning and watch it. However, but we got breaking news. Breaking news. We have a couple breaking news. We first came on and massive victories for Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, and Miami. A AC settlement looks to be happening tomorrow. And the reports were in 2029 and 2030, after that season, that there's going to be a cost certainty, a date certain, that you're going to be able to, one exit fee number of less than $100 million is going to get you out of the conference. Less than $100 million, you're going to be able to regain your media rights, and you're going to be able to leave the conference if you chose to do so after the 29 and 30 season. That's the settlement. Florida State and Clemson then would drop their lawsuits. ACC dropped their lawsuits. Okay. About midway through this 3-hour show, Andy Staples broke the news that 100 number, less than 100 number, is $200 million starting tomorrow. If the settlement happens, which it looks like it's going to, Andy Staples said around $200 million it would cost for you to buy back your media rights. Exit fee, you can leave the conference. That is a big breaking news. Now, I don't want to, I got some people saying $200 million is a lot of money. It is. It is. But for that, if you're in talks, and you get an invitation to the SEC, the Big Ten, I think you pay that $200 million. I think if you're North Carolina, you got to figure it out with your Board of Governors. That's a whole nother. Virginia, you got to figure it out in your state capital with Virginia Tech interest. Clemson, if you get SEC, you do it. You get the $200 million. Florida State, you do it. Miami, you do it. In my opinion. $200 million to get back your media rights. And they gotta, an ACC has to accept the check. Unlike, I don't know. It's, NC Board of Regents, the governors. The Board of Governors. Wow. Okay, we're going to close this up. We've been on the air for 2 hours, almost 3 hours, or a minute and a half away from 3 hours. I want to thank everybody for joining us. We still have about 300 people in the chat room. Big time show. Thank you, guys. We are going to be coming on live a lot here. Maybe later tonight. Maybe I'll go on the Mafia show. Maybe I'll do a late night show. Because there's going to be more reporting going on here. Tomorrow is the big day. We've got the Tuesday ACC settlement day. Tomorrow. The Florida State Board of Regents is going to be, trustees is going to be coming on live. I may carry that live. So anyways, please subscribe to the channel. Smash the like button if you enjoyed our content today. I want to thank everybody who's given us a donation to help us keep the lights on here. Larry Andrick, John Teal, Terry Kane, Rock and Rant, Kenneth Meaner, Daniel Gorby, The Evil Badger, Ryan Willie, Ryan Thomas, Azan, The Kid, Morris Simmons. Thank you all so much for your incredible generosity. I do appreciate it. Keep your head on a swivel. This is a nuclear bomb going off. Especially if Andy Staples' reporting is correct. Keep your head on a swivel. We may be coming on live again tonight. I think the chances are kind of high. So make sure you have your notifications turned on. Subscribe, notifications turned on. A big, massive victory for Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, Miami, and possibly a few other schools. A big-time victory for, I believe, the Big 12. Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I don't know, man. The walls continue to close on in to your football independent program. We've got so much to discuss. Cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger. Until next time, from all of us at College Football's Peek Around the Corner, to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.